Every hero needs some villains to fight, and in the case of Batman, his rogues gallery is nearly as prolific and popular as him. This means the upcoming film, The Batman, has plenty of choice when it comes to which villains will be giving the Caped Crusader a hard time. With yet another Batman reboot right around the corner, what better time to take a look at some of those villains who made Batman into the hero he is today? The new film, starring Robert Pattinson as our mildly unfriendly neighborhood Batman, will have plenty of villainous talent to draw from. The Batman will be set in the earlier years of Bruce Wayne's crime-fighting career, and thus, we will see him facing newly formed villains who are dead set on taking down the Bat. Let's take a look at some of the more likely candidates and how they can fit into this new rendition of Batman. One of the many mafia members of Gotham City, Sal Maroni, was one of Batman's first enemies. He's a very common sight in any Batman storyline, particularly stories that are closer to Batman's origin, due to Mr. Maroni's more mundane nature when compared to some of the more fantastical characters in Bats' rogue gallery. There's a pretty good chance that Sal Maroni gets a cameo appearance in the film at the very least, being a common enemy of the Caped Crusader, but he probably won't have a much bigger role. This movie is set 2 years into Bruce Wayne's crime-fighting career, so he's probably already past dealing with small fries like the gangster Sal Maroni, though there is a newspaper clipping of a Maroni drug bust shown in the original trailer, so he may be involved a bit more than anticipated. Being the head of the Falcone crime family makes Carmine Falcone one of the most powerful individuals in Gotham. However, just like Sal Maroni, Mr. Falcone wouldn't be too much of an issue for Batman at this point of his crime-fighting career that the film is set in. Carmine Falcone is just one of the many organized crime syndicate leaders in the city of Gotham, and he keeps a much lower profile than some of the really big players like the Joker. If he is in the upcoming film, it's likely that he's played in a manner similar to Sal Maroni, possibly used as a flashback for the origin of Bruce Wayne's Batman persona. Whether or not he's in the upcoming Robert Pattinson flick, he will almost definitely play second fiddle to the more colorful members of Batman's rogue gallery. Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot is one of the most iconic members of Batman's villainous ne'er-do-wells. Also known as the Penguin, Mr. Cobblepot fancies himself Gotham City's gentleman of crime and has been one of Batman's longest-lasting villains. Penguin fights with his iconic umbrella, which he has kitted with all kinds of insane gadgetry. It's done just about everything you can imagine, from firing bullets, missiles, and flames. It's even been used as a pogo stick and a helicopter. This Penguin is anything but flightless, it seems. Colin Farrell is set to play the portly profligate in the upcoming film, which seems like quite a strange casting choice if you ask me. Penguin will be early on in his crime career in the movie. Not quite at the Gotham ruling status he is most often at in the comic books. He will likely play a pretty large role in the film, but will not be the main villain as that role seems to be for the Riddler. Selina Kyle is a pretty complex character in Batman's history. She has jumped all around from being a villain, anti-hero, and even a straight-up hero at times. Catwoman is an absolute wild card to say the least, but she usually can be relied on when all the cards are down, and that seems to be the case for the Batman. In this film, Catwoman will likely play a role similar to the one she played in The Dark Knight Rises, acting as a supporting ally for the Bat as he takes down the main Gotham criminals. She's got a lot of the same skills as Batman, and also follows the same stealthy and hand-to-hand combat archetype, but she misses out a lot when it comes to gadgets and resources. Outside of her whip and claws, she doesn't have a ton of versatility, a far cry from Batman's infinite utility belt. It'll be interesting to see what new trips and tracks she may get in The Batman. Hush is a pivotal character in Bruce Wayne's life, and this new film could be a great way to introduce him into a new cinematic universe. Hush's true name is Thomas Elliot, or as his childhood friend Bruce would call him, Tommy. Tommy was also one of the few people who was able to out-strategize the young Bruce Wayne. When becoming Hush, he changed himself closely to resemble Bruce, but eventually ended up wrapping his face up entirely. Hush has also worked closely with the Riddler in the past, and considering the not-so-subtle Riddler-themed hints in the trailers, Hush very well may play a major role in the film. Now this is the obvious one. If you saw the trailer, you knew this was coming. Just by the abundance of question marks alone, Riddler appears to be the main villain for Batman in this film, and I'd say it's about time. Riddler hasn't made a live-action appearance in a Batman film ever since Jim Carrey played the mean green question machine back in 1995's Batman Forever. Right now, it's safe to assume that Edward E. Nygma will be Batman's main antagonist in the film, unless it's a red herring, which would honestly be a fitting twist for the Riddler. While the Riddler is just as devious and morally bereft as any of the other Batman villains, he is more interested in getting a sense of superiority over his opponents. Nygma will go so far as to even devise elaborate traps to prove he's smarter than Batman, instead of taking him out when he's got the chance. The Skeleton Gang seem to be a somewhat organized gang that opposes Batman in the trailer for the film. Whether they're working for a gang boss or just playing dress-up with their makeup isn't entirely clear yet. The Batman series is no stranger to criminal heads like Joker, Bane, or Penguin having their own wardrobe selection, so it seems most likely that these thugs are part of a larger organization. Not too much more to say on this gang of ruffians, other than they will be some good punching bags for Batman to show off his hand-to-hand skills, and for that, they've earned our respect. The go-to character when the writers want to implement some horror elements into the already dark Batman series is Scarecrow. With his fear toxin, he is a force to be reckoned with. If Hush happens to make an appearance in the film, there's a very strong possibility that Scarecrow will as well, at least in a flashback. In many ways, Scarecrow was the person responsible for setting Thomas Elliot on his path to villainy. A young Johnathan Crane released Tommy after the young boy was placed in a psychiatric ward for assaulting another boy at camp. The director of the film, Matt Reeves, has made it clear that he has a lot of interest in Batman's rogue gallery and wanted the Batman to be an origin story not just for Batman, but for many of his longtime opponents. Scarecrow, Thomas Elliot, and the Riddler all fit together nicely for this reason. There's a theory going around that one of Gotham's underground crime syndicates, the Court of Owls, may play a role in the film and could even be the puppeteer for the entire film. Part of this speculation comes from the fact that one of what we assume is Riddler's cards comes with a large image of an owl. The Court of Owls is so ingrained in the history of Gotham that they even have their own creepy nursery rhyme about them. The Court of Owls use the aptly named Talons to hunt down the enemies of the court. The Talons are an extremely lethal hit squad who do the dark bidding of the greater organization. The court has a grudge with the Waynes due to the power that the Wayne family has had over Gotham for a long time. Secret Illuminati organizations are always fun, and the Court of Owls finally getting a live-action film appearance would be awesome to see. There's not a Batman villain list that won't include the Joker. It just isn't possible. There isn't much to say about the insane and evil clown other than that he's the most iconic Batman villain. So iconic even that his popularity is just about on par with the Caped Crusader himself. At this point, it doesn't seem likely that Joker would be appearing in the film proper. He's too much of an audience draw to leave out of the marketing after all. But that doesn't mean he'll be entirely absent. The Batman is expected to have at least 2 follow-up films, much like the Dark Knight series. And this would be the perfect moment to tease the crazy clown at the end of the movie. Batman Begins did it, why not do the same for The Batman? It would definitely hype up the fan base for the sequel. The only question is if it'll be Joaquin Phoenix or not. The Batman is looking like a fresh new take on the franchise. One of the coolest things about the Arkham Batman games is that you got to go through just about his entire rogues gallery. And this movie may just scratch that same itch.